Hey everybody, there's been a lot of talk here in Australia over the last couple of weeks around the early release of superannuation provisions that the government have brought out to deal with the coronavirus. And simply they are giving Australians, eligible Australians, the ability to access $10,000 from their superannuation this financial year, so before June 30, and a further $10,000 in July to help them through a tough time. Now, whether this is a good idea or not can be hard for you to understand, because in the media they're very good at showing different points of view, and that can be very confusing for somebody like you, because you're trying to understand, well, what does this mean for me? How does this impact me? And an important thing to consider in a time like this is that a lot of the people you see on the media will have their own agenda. So somebody representing a superannuation fund, for instance, they simply don't want you withdrawing money. They want the money to remain in their fund. If thousands, hundreds of thousands of Australians start withdrawing lots of $10,000 out of their fund, it will affect their earnings and their capacity to invest. So they may not want you to be withdrawing money. So they will give you the argument around, here's the lost earnings. This $10,000 or $20,000, here's the impact of how much this could cost you in the future in retirement income. On the flip side, there are people saying, yep, just take it out. But by the same token, they're ignoring the pros and cons of that. And so in today's video, I want to talk through how I would look at this and help you think through the main issues so you can make the right decision. So one of the first things to consider is eligibility, and not everybody is eligible, and that's one of the big misconceptions on this. So to be eligible, you have to essentially be unemployed or have lost your job in recent times. So again, check out the government website for the full details of eligibility, but it's not something that everyone can apply for. You have to meet certain criteria. And the idea is that the people who are eligible, there is generally a financial need for them to access this money, and that's the intention of this money. Now, second part that I would look at and I would consider if I were you is, what will you do with the money? If you don't need the money, then there is an argument of, well, why take it out? Because there are certain tax concessions within the superannuation environment that you won't get externally. So by taking the money out of super, you will lose some of those tax concessions on the earnings of that 10,000 or two lots of 10,000, 20,000, and that will be to your detriment in the future. On the flip side of that, there's an issue around access to capital. That money in superannuation is tied up until you reach preservation age, which typically is over 60 for most people in Australia now. So if you're on your 30s and you can access some of your superannuation money, I can understand why you may feel that that's actually a good idea to get access to it now and invest it or do something with it rather than keeping it within the superannuation environment. Of course, the main reason the government's brought this in is to help people who simply don't have much money at a time like this. So you may have mortgage payment or rent payments, debts to pay, medical fees, family to feed, all those sorts of things. And if you're in the unfortunate position that you've lost your job and there is no or limited or reduced income coming into your family, then I can totally understand why you may want to take this money out and essentially use it up to get you through this tough time until you can get back on your feet again. There is nothing wrong with that, as long as you understand that something you do today with your money has an effect in the future. It's something I've talked about a lot on this channel. Why, if I've got $1 today, why would I invest that for my future versus spending it today? And as an individual, we can think of equally compelling reasons for either side of that. I can give you many reasons to invest it for the future, but there's also aspects of, if I use it now, I'm going to get some pleasure as well. One of the things that's really important is to understand the effect of this and what the effect it will have, because I've seen so many figures shown on social media and on news sites and so on, and the reality is that none of them apply to your situation. And I think the important thing with this is to understand, if I take money out, how does it affect me as an individual? So my suggestion is, jump on to the Money Smart website, and we'll put a link under this video so you can find the link easily, and they have a really good superannuation calculator on there. And I'll walk you through how this works and how to input it to understand your situation and what the impact will be if you were to take $20,000 out of your super. Now, when I say 20,000, what I'm assuming is you take 10,000 out this financial year and 10,000 out early in the next financial year. That's the way that these provisions work. So, looking at this, let's use the scenario that you're at age 25, your income is $80,000 a year, and the desired retirement age is 67. So that's the age that we want to project this to. Let's say you've already got $100,000 sitting in super, just because it's a nice round number, and I'll use that for all the examples. And your employer's putting in 9.5%. Default fund fees, default investment options, so it's going to return, well, this is projecting it to return 7.5% a year with a little bit of tax on it and investment fees, and here's the results. So if you did nothing, this is assuming today you got $100,000 in super and you left it there. You did not take out 20,000, you left it there. Your money's going to grow to 757,000 by age 67. So that is in 42 years, it will grow from 100,000 plus your employer contributions to 757,000. Remember 757. Now, if I change your super balance to 80,000 to reflect the fact you've taken $20,000 out of super today, this graph changes to $710,000 as the end result. Remember, it was 757 before. So the difference between 710 and 757 is $47,000. But also remember, 20,000 of the 47,000 is your capital, and then the other $20,000, $27,000, sorry, is the lost growth from there. So you can see, okay, if this was me, if I was 25, these are my numbers. But the reality is you're probably not 25. What if, and I'll do this example, you were 40 years old and today you had $100,000 sitting in super, or whatever your account balance is. That money would grow to $454,000 at age 67. Why is that a different figure? Simply because we're 40. You've only got 27 years to go. So remember, 454. If instead of having 100,000, you had 80,000 because you've taken 20,000 out, 454 changes to 419. Let's call it 420. So it's dropped by $34,000. Now again, 20,000 of that is your capital and 14,000 of that is the lost earnings over time. What you need to do is put in your details and do exactly as I've done. So in the age, you put your age in, you put your income in, you put your superannuation balance. Most employers are putting in 9.5%. If you're making additional contributions, put that in there. If not, it doesn't matter. Have a look at, if you can, your investment options. If you're in a more of an aggressive fund, you may change this from the default option to the other option, and then you can bump the investment return up a little bit. The higher the return, the higher the future balance is going to be. So that will kind of exaggerate the result a little bit, maybe more realistic in your case. But plug the numbers in, have a look at what it says your superannuation will grow to now, and then reduce your super balance by 20,000, like I've shown you, like I've done in these examples. And then have a look down here at what the balance will be. That is the cost to you. Now, the other flip side of this is it's not all lost, because if you do need the money now for genuine reasons, you can always make it up down the track. It's a lot of the commentators I see on the news, their view is it's gone. Well, it's not gone. Once you get to work again, you are able to contribute into super. Now, the thing to understand, it will take you longer to catch up, okay? Because you may not have a spare 10,000 or 20,000 sitting around to put back into super. It might take you 10 years to replenish that money, putting in, for example, say 2,000 a year over 10 years. So that money will not recoup its loss in the remaining period of time. You probably have to put more money in. So if you take 20,000 out now, and then in a couple of years' time, you decide I'm ready to put some money back in, you might need to put 25,000 or 30,000 back in to get this number back to where it was. But these are all things that are unique to a personal situation. As I said, when you look on the media, they are going to use extreme examples. They will not explain the assumptions behind those examples, and a lot of the commentators will have their own biases and their own agenda with this. So the purpose of this video is not to say do it or don't do it. I can see some perfectly reasonable reasons to go ahead and do it, particularly if you're financially in a tough situation at the moment and this money would give you some peace of mind, help you sleep better at night, then, and you're eligible for it, it could be the best thing that you do. On the other hand, the option is to take it out, and then if you don't use it, if by good fortune you get another job and you don't need to dip into this money, you can always put it back into superannuation again in a relatively short period of time, subject to the contribution rules. So there's no one right answer with this. Everybody's situation is different. I want you to understand the options that you have and the implications. If you do this, this is what it means for your money. There's consequences in everything, and for you to make a good decision, you just need to understand what they are. But at the end of the day, don't feel judged if you need to take the money out because financially you really are struggling. There is nothing wrong with that at all. And don't let anybody else tell you that. I really hope this video has helped. It's been a bit longer than usual, but I think it's really important to understand the pros and cons and the calculations that are involved with this as well, and how to do these calculations yourself. Thank you so much for watching. If you're having any questions, if this is confusing or I haven't explained something, leave a comment and I will answer and get back to you as soon as I can. And would love you to like and subscribe as well if you can. Thank you so much.